My hands were shaking. Actually, no, everything was shaking. My vision, my breath, my entire world was tilting on its axis in the span of a single moment. There, hanging in my sister's bedroom, was my wedding dress, the one I'd spent 4 months selecting. The ivory silk gown with the hand-sewn beading that took a master craftsman 2 weeks to complete. The dress that was supposed to be in my closet, under lock and key, protected, sacred, waiting for the day I would become a wife. But that's not what broke me. What broke me was the text message I saw on her phone, which had fallen face up onto her nightstand. Can't wait to walk down that aisle in her dress. He's going to die when he sees us like this. Poor thing has no idea. I read that message 3 times, hoping my brain would interpret it differently each time. It didn't. The truth was staring me in the face, and I was about to find out that the 2 people I trusted most in the world had built an entire alternate life behind my back. James entered my life on a Tuesday afternoon at a coffee shop where I was hiding from life. I'd just walked away from a 2-year relationship that had slowly poisoned my ability to believe in love, and I was convinced, absolutely convinced, that I would spend the rest of my life alone. It felt safer that way. Easier. If you don't let anyone in, they can't hurt you, right? He spilled an entire cappuccino on me while reaching across the counter. The barista had called out, "James!" and he'd turned too quickly, too enthusiastically, his arm connecting with my white linen shirt. I remember the warmth of the coffee, the shock of it, and then I remember him, really remember him, apologizing with the most genuine expression of horror on his face. What struck me most wasn't his apology. It was that he didn't offer empty words. Instead, he listened as I explained why I was sitting alone in a coffee shop on a Tuesday afternoon, looking like I'd lost everything. He listened for 3 hours. He ordered us new drinks. He asked real questions. He didn't try to fix me or tell me I was better off. And he didn't use my sadness as an opportunity to tell me his own tragic story. He just listened. When I finally looked at my watch, shocked to find that 4 hours had passed, he asked if he could get my number, not in a pushy way, in a way that suggested that if I said no, he would understand completely, smile, and let me disappear from his life without resentment. Something about that quiet respect made me believe that maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world. I gave him my number. Our first year together was something out of a romantic comedy. He brought flowers. He remembered the little things I said, like how I love thunderstorms and old movies and the way rain smells. He would randomly text me at 3 p.m. to ask what I was thinking about. He made me feel like the most important person in the world. For the first time since I was a little girl, I believed in happily ever after. I believed that love could be gentle and consistent and real. James made me believe in second chances at love, at trust, at my own heart. When he proposed on my birthday, in the same coffee shop where we met, down on one knee with a vintage diamond ring that had belonged to his grandmother, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. I called my sister immediately. I remember her voice on the phone, excited and warm. "I'm so happy for you," she said. "You deserve this. You deserve to be loved like this." My sister Rebecca, 3 years older, my protector growing up, my best friend, at least that's who I thought she was. Rebecca had always been larger than life. She was the popular one in high school, the one who dated the quarterback, the one who made our parents proud with her marketing degree from a prestigious university. When she walked into a room, people turned. Men turned. She had this effortless confidence that I'd always admired and, if I'm being honest, envied. But she was also kind, or at least I thought she was. She helped me through my breakup. She sat with me on hard tile bathroom floors at 2 a.m. when I was convinced I would never feel joy again. She played the role of the supportive older sister perfectly. She even said she was proud of me for opening my heart again after being hurt so deeply. When James came into my life, Rebecca was thrilled. She would ask about our dates. She would tell me I looked happy. She'd squeeze my hand and say things like, "I knew you'd find someone who would treat you right. You're going to have the most beautiful wedding." She even helped me shop for my dress. I trusted her with everything. 3 months before the wedding, something shifted. It was subtle at first. The kind of thing you might dismiss if you weren't paying attention, but I was paying attention. I'd learned to pay attention after my first heartbreak. James started coming home later from work. Not dramatically later, just 20 minutes, 30 minutes. He'd say there was a project that needed to be finished, a client crisis. The usual excuses that people in high-pressure corporate jobs use to explain why they're not home for dinner. But here's what struck me. He didn't seem stressed about it. Usually, when James had work problems, he'd come through the door with his shoulders tensed, ready to vent. Now he'd come through the door humming. Actually humming. Like he'd just had the best day of his life. One Tuesday, I decided to surprise him at the office with takeout from his favorite Thai restaurant. I'd called ahead. I had everything timed perfectly. I was going to bring him dinner and spend 30 minutes with him before coming back home. When I arrived at his office building at 6:15 p.m., his car wasn't in the parking lot. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, the Thai food cooling beside me, telling myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe he was at a client dinner. Maybe he'd parked on a different level. Maybe I was losing my mind. I went upstairs to his office. His boss was still there, packing up for the day. I asked if James was in a meeting. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. James left early today, he said. Around 4:30. Said he had somewhere to be. I left the office with the Thai food still in my hands. I sat in my car and called James. He answered on the second ring, and his voice had that guilty quality to it, like he'd been caught even before I'd asked him where he was. Hey baby, he said, what's up? Where are you? I asked. There was a pause. A pause that lasted just long enough for me to know that whatever he was about to say would be a lie. I'm at the gym, he said. I texted you about it. Didn't you get my text? I looked at my phone. There was no text. There was nothing. And I knew, in that moment, that he was lying to me. My fiancé, the man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with, was lying to my face. Once I started looking for it, the pattern became impossible to ignore. He'd tell me he was working late, but I'd see him texting someone with an intensity that made his thumbs move faster than I'd ever seen them move before. He'd go to the bathroom in the middle of dinner and be in there for 15 minutes. His phone, which had always been openly on the table between us, suddenly disappeared into his pocket whenever I was near. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to ask directly, "Are you cheating on me?" But I was terrified of the answer. So instead, I did what people always do when they're afraid to face the truth. I ignored it. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that anxiety and trust issues from my previous relationship were making me see betrayal where there was none. I ignored the voice inside me that was screaming that something was very, very wrong. And then Rebecca started acting strange too. Rebecca suddenly became unavailable. She'd always been the type of sister who could drop everything for me. That's what sisters do when they love each other. But suddenly, she was busy. Too busy for coffee, too busy for our weekly lunches, too busy for wedding planning. When I'd call her, she wouldn't answer. When I'd text her, she'd respond hours later with one-word replies. Cool, nice, okay. No emojis, no warmth, just cold, distant words from the woman who I'd been sharing every detail of my life with. I remember telling my friend Sarah about it. Maybe she's just got her own stuff going on, Sarah suggested. Maybe she's going through something and needs space. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that my sister wasn't abandoning me right when I needed her most. But then one Sunday, I was at my parents' house, and I overheard Rebecca on the phone in the kitchen. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I wasn't looking for information. I was just walking by to grab a glass of water, and I heard her whisper, "He's perfect, just like I always wanted." I can't believe this is actually happening. My stomach dropped. My mind immediately went to terrible places. Did Rebecca have a boyfriend? Was she pregnant? Was she dying? Was she moving away? I pressed my ear against the kitchen door. I know it's crazy, Rebecca continued, but I've never felt this way before, not ever, not with anyone. This is different. This is real. This is everything. I became a detective overnight. I'm not proud of it. In fact, I'm ashamed of what I did next. I violated privacy. I broke trust. But when your gut is screaming that your entire life is built on lies, sometimes you're willing to become someone you're not just to get answers. I started small. I tracked James's location on Google Maps. He'd shared his location with me early in our relationship for safety. It showed that he'd been at an apartment across town for the past 3 months. 3 months. Every Thursday and Saturday. Consistent. Deliberate. Like clockwork. I looked up the apartment building online. It was a new complex. Nice. The kind of place that would cost money to live in. I wondered if he was paying for it. I wondered if maybe this was something he and Rebecca had been planning together. I made a fake Instagram account. I know, but I was desperate. I searched for James's old Instagram, the one he said he'd deleted years ago. He hadn't deleted it. He'd just made it private and changed his profile picture to something generic. I looked through his followers. Rebecca's account came up. She was following him, but she wasn't following me, and she'd unfollowed me 3 months ago. I checked. 3 months, right around the time he started leaving early from work. I looked at his Instagram photos, vacation pictures from 2 years ago, pictures with his family, and then, sandwiched between a photo of him at the beach and one of his childhood dog, a photo that made my blood run cold. It was a selfie of James and Rebecca, his arm around her shoulder, both of them smiling. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. They looked happy. They looked like they were together. The date on the photo was 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, which was before James and I had even met. Which meant I went down the rabbit hole. I looked through every comment, every like, every trace of James and Rebecca's relationship online. And the picture became horrifyingly clear. They'd been dating 2.5 years ago. They'd broken up about 2 years ago. And then, about 3 months after I met James, right around the time he was supposed to be falling in love with me, they'd reconnected. I found messages on social media, old ones that still existed in the threads. Rebecca asking James if they could talk, James saying he missed her, Rebecca saying that being with me had been a mistake, that I was too needy, too emotionally damaged, that she felt obligated to be my sister even though the thought of spending time with me exhausted her. Those words hit different. Not the betrayal by James. I'd already expected that in some way. But these words from Rebecca, who I'd trusted with my deepest fears and insecurities, felt like a knife being twisted in my chest. She had been consoling me while hating me. She had been holding my hand while despising who I was. She had been listening to my fears about James cheating while she was actively cheating with him. I needed proof. Real, concrete proof that I could show to their faces when I confronted them. I needed to be absolutely certain before I did something irreversible. The wedding was 6 weeks away. 6 weeks. I'd sent out invitations. I'd chosen flowers. I'd booked photographers and a venue and a band. I'd planned the most important day of my life down to the last detail. And meanwhile, my fiancé and my sister were planning something of their own. 2 weeks before our wedding was supposed to happen, I got a text from my mother. She wanted me to bring my dress to the house so she could see it before the wedding. It was a tradition. My mother was going to have the dress pressed professionally, and she wanted to see me in it one more time before the big day. I brought my dress to my parents' house. My mother was there. Rebecca was there. It was supposed to be this beautiful moment. 3 women, 3 generations, about to celebrate a wedding. Rebecca seemed distant and weird, as she had been for months. She barely looked at me when I arrived. She was on her phone constantly. She kept excusing herself to go to the bathroom. My mother didn't notice anything was wrong. She was too excited about the dress. After we'd spent an hour admiring the dress, Rebecca said she needed to head home. She was tired. She had an early morning. No one thought anything of it. No one questioned it. She just left. 2 hours later, I'd driven back home. James was supposed to be at work. He'd left that morning saying he had a late meeting, but I had a feeling. That same feeling that had been keeping me up at night for the past 3 months. So I went to his office. I checked the parking lot. His car wasn't there, but my sister's car was parked 3 blocks away, in front of an apartment building I'd become very familiar with. I sat in my car for 45 minutes. I cried. I screamed. I felt my heart break into pieces so small I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to put them back together. And then I got out of my car, and I went into that building. I used a key code I'd found in an email confirmation. James had been stupid enough to have his apartment rental confirmation forwarded to his personal email, and I'd hacked into it weeks ago. I went up to the 4th floor. I stood outside apartment 402, and I could hear noises, laughter, movement, the sounds of 2 people together. I didn't have a key to the apartment. I couldn't get inside. But I took photos. I took photos with my phone of the apartment number and the building. I texted James from outside, "Hey, where are you?" He responded within seconds. "Still at work, baby. Should be home by 8. I went back to my car and sat there, watching the building. After 40 minutes, Rebecca walked out, her hair messy, her lipstick smudged. She didn't see me. She walked to her car and drove away. I finally had the proof. But knowing the truth somehow felt worse than not knowing. Now I had to do something with it. I didn't confront them immediately. I couldn't. I was too hurt, too confused, too angry. Instead, I did what broken people do. I watched. I waited. I collected more evidence like I was building a case that would stand up in court. I had 2 weeks before the wedding. 2 weeks to decide what I was going to do. Cancel it? Go through with it and confront them at the altar? Disappear to a remote island and pretend my life was something different than this nightmare? And then something happened that made the decision for me. I went to Rebecca's house. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was wrong, but I needed to confront her. I needed to hear her say it out loud. Needed to hear her admit what she'd been doing. I drove over there unannounced at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, furious and ready for the confrontation. She wasn't home, but her bedroom window was open. I know this sounds unhinged. I know it sounds like I was losing my mind. And maybe I was. Maybe grief and betrayal do that to people. They turn you into someone you don't recognize. I climbed through the window, and there it was, hanging on a special garment rack in her closet, my wedding dress. The ivory silk gown I'd spent 4 months selecting. The one with the hand-sewn beading. The one that was supposed to be sacred and protected. But that wasn't all. Next to it was another dress, a smaller dress. A dress that looked a lot like a wedding dress, but not quite. It was like she was creating an alternate universe. One where she was the bride and James was her groom. And then I saw it on her nightstand. The phone, face up with a text message thread open. I picked it up. I shouldn't have, but I did. The text messages were between Rebecca and James, and they were discussing the plan. It all made sense now. Horrible, sick sense, but it made sense. According to the text messages, Rebecca and James had planned the whole thing from the beginning. James had approached Rebecca at a bar 6 months before he met me. Because, yes, there's actually a bar meeting that happened before the coffee shop meeting. And they'd started dating. But James wanted to make sure that Rebecca would be available for the long term. He wanted to make sure there were no other men in the picture. So they came up with a plan. The plan was to have James date me, to propose to me, to get close to my family and to me, and then 2 weeks before the wedding, Rebecca and James would run away together, leaving me at the altar. They would then have a small wedding ceremony, just the 2 of them, in the same location where I was supposed to get married. Rebecca wanted to humiliate me. She wanted me to feel the same pain that she claimed I'd caused her, though I had no idea what that pain was supposed to be. They wanted to destroy my reputation, ruin my confidence, and ensure that I would never trust anyone ever again. And as the cherry on top, they were going to use my wedding dress. They were going to wear the gown I'd chosen, the one I'd saved for my special day for their secret wedding. They were going to erase me completely. They were going to take everything that was mine and make it theirs. I read the text messages over and over again, hoping my brain was misinterpreting them. I hoped I was in a psychotic break and that none of this was real. But it was real. Every word of it was real. I sat on Rebecca's floor, in her bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and I finally let myself break. I mean really break. The kind of break where you can't breathe. The kind of break where you think you might actually die from the pain. My sister, my own blood, had conspired with my fiancé to humiliate me on one of the most important days of my life. They'd planned this for months. This story is wild, and it gets even more intense. Hit like if you think Rebecca and James deserve what's coming to them. Subscribe to Tin-Tea Tales to see what happens next, and drop a comment telling me, What would you have done in this situation? Don't go anywhere. The confrontation is about to get messy. I climbed back out of Rebecca's window the way I came in. I drove to my parents' house in complete silence. I didn't even turn on the radio. I just drove, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my mind racing through different scenarios of what was about to happen. I found both of them there, James and Rebecca, sitting at my parents' dinner table like two pillars of normalcy, like two people who hadn't just destroyed someone's entire life. My mother was asking Rebecca about her new job. My father was telling James about a golf tournament he was planning. And I just stood in the doorway, staring at them, trying to reconcile these two images, the people I loved and the people who had betrayed me so completely. Rebecca, James, I said quietly, I need to talk to you, both of you, alone. My mother looked up from her plate. What's going on? Mom, Dad, I need a minute with them. Please. They must have sensed something in my voice, because they excused themselves and went upstairs without asking questions. I led James and Rebecca into my father's office and closed the door. I looked at both of them. I know, I said. I know everything. The affair, the plan, the wedding dress, all of it. James's face went white. Rebecca's face went red. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then James did something I didn't expect. He laughed, actually laughed, like this was funny to him, like my pain was entertaining. How did you? He started. I found the text messages. I followed you to the apartment. I saw Rebecca. I know everything, James. I know you two have been together the whole time. I know you proposed to me while you were already in love with my sister. I know you planned to humiliate me. I know you wanted to wear my wedding dress. Rebecca finally spoke. You don't understand. Understand what? That you hate me? That's pretty clear. I just don't know why. Tell me, Rebecca, what did I ever do to you that was so terrible that you needed to destroy my life? Rebecca stood up. Her eyes were cold, colder than I'd ever seen them. You took him from me, she said. I've been in love with James for years, and then he decided to try to move on, so he used you. He tried to forget about me by dating my sister. And it was working. He was actually going to propose to you and marry you, and I would have lost him forever. So this was your solution? To steal my wedding dress and run away with my fiancé at the altar? It's called justice, Rebecca said. You've always had everything easy. You've always been the pretty one, the innocent one, the one people rally around. Well, I wanted you to feel what it's like to have everything taken away from you. And that's when James spoke up. Look, this is getting out of hand, he said. Rebecca and we have something, it's real. But I don't regret meeting you. You were nice, you were convenient, you filled a hole for a while. Convenient, I repeated. You proposed to me, James. You told me you loved me. You planned a life with me. I do care about you, he said. And somehow these words felt even worse than if he'd just admitted he didn't. But I'm in love with Rebecca. I've always been in love with Rebecca. Meeting you, it was just a distraction, something to make her jealous, something to remind her what she was missing. I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, but now it was mixed with rage, pure white-hot rage. I need to tell you both something, I said, my voice steady. I'm not going to cry anymore. I'm not going to beg either of you to tell me I'm wrong. I know the truth, and I'm going to act on it. So you need to understand what's about to happen. Here's what I did. I called off the wedding. I sent out an email to every single person who had been invited, 150 people, explaining that my fiancé and my sister had been having an affair, that they had planned to humiliate me at the altar, and that I would not be proceeding with the ceremony. I attached screenshots of the text messages, redacted to protect their legal privacy, but clear enough that people could understand what was happening. I included the photo of them together that was posted 2.5 years ago. I included evidence of James's apartment. I included everything. Then I called the police, not for revenge, but because I had trespassed on Rebecca's property and I wanted to be honest about it. I filed a civil lawsuit against James for breach of contract. Not a romantic contract, a financial one. James had convinced me to postpone paying off my student loans. He'd said he wanted to buy a house together and that having student loan debt would affect our credit score. So, I'd deferred my loans. I'd also taken out a loan to help pay for the wedding. That loan was in both our names. Now, with our engagement broken, he was refusing to help pay back any of the wedding expenses. He said it was his money and he could do with it what he wanted. So I sued him for half of all wedding-related expenses, plus penalties for fraud and breach of contract. I also reached out to James's company's HR department. I explained the situation. I didn't ask them to do anything specific. I just told them the truth. They handled it from there. James was let go 3 weeks later. Apparently, his company had a strict fraternization and honesty policy, and what he'd done violated both. And Rebecca faced the consequences of being the person who planned all of this. Our parents found out the truth. They were devastated. They loved both of us, but they couldn't condone what Rebecca had done. They cut off contact with her for 2 years. 2 years of silence. 2 years of missing her niece's graduation and her nephew's baseball games and family holidays. Wow, what a turn this has taken. If you're as shocked as I was living through this, react now. Use the emoji reactions or tell me in the comments which family member hurt you the most. Subscribe to Tin-Tea Tales so you never miss a story like this. And share this with someone you trust who needs to hear that karma is real. The ending to this story will change how you think about revenge and healing. The first week after calling off the wedding was the hardest week of my life. And I've had some hard weeks. I'd had my heart broken before. I'd experienced loss. But nothing prepared me for this. The unique pain of being betrayed by the 2 people you trust most in the world. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding, my brain replaying conversations and trying to identify where things had gone wrong. I'd lie there and wonder if there was something inherently unlovable about me, if there was a reason that my own sister had conspired to destroy me. My mother called me every day. She'd just talk at me, tell me about her day, about what she was making for dinner, about nothing and everything at the same time. She never asked me to talk about it. She just wanted me to know that I wasn't alone. My best friend Sarah came over and sat with me while I cried. She didn't try to make me feel better. She didn't tell me that I would heal or that time would make the pain go away. She just sat there and cried with me because she loved me, and my pain was her pain. The internet discovered my story. My email about calling off the wedding had been forwarded to people outside my circle, and somehow it ended up online. I received hundreds of messages, some supportive, some attacking me, some just trying to understand what had happened. I'm not going to tell you that I woke up one day and was healed. That's not how trauma works. That's not how betrayal works. Healing is messy and nonlinear, and sometimes you feel like you're back at square one even though you've made months of progress. But I did start to feel better. I started to laugh again. I started to remember who I was before James. I started to rebuild my life. I filed my taxes and realized that the money I'd saved for the wedding was actually going to be useful. I started therapy with a trauma-informed therapist who helped me understand why I had ignored the red flags. She told me that wasn't my fault. That sometimes we ignore what we're afraid to see because seeing it would mean losing what we thought we had. I went back to school. I'd always wanted to get a master's degree, but I'd put it on hold for James. So I applied. I got in. I started classes in the fall. And then, about 8 months after the wedding that never happened, I ran into Rebecca at a grocery store. She looked different. She looked tired. She looked broken in a way I recognized, because I'd looked that way too. I almost walked the other way. I almost pretended I didn't see her, but I didn't. Something inside me, something I can't quite explain, made me walk toward her. "Hi," I said. She looked up and her face went pale. "Oh my God," she said. I don't know what to say." We ended up sitting in the parking lot for 2 hours. She told me what had happened with James. Apparently, after our engagement ended, he'd tried to keep their relationship going. But he quickly realized that he'd only ever really wanted Rebecca because she was unattainable. Once she was available, once she was his, the appeal wore off. He'd cheated on her, not with me, but with someone else. Someone he met at the gym. Rebecca found out the same way I had. She'd followed him, she'd snooped through his phone, she'd discovered the truth, and she'd realized something. James had lied to her too. He'd told her that he loved her, that I meant nothing to him, that everything had been for her. But he was lying. He was just a man who wanted what he couldn't have, and once he had it, he lost interest. Rebecca told me that what she'd done was unforgivable. She said she'd spent 8 months in therapy trying to understand why she'd been capable of betraying me so completely. She said that her therapist had helped her realize that her anger at me wasn't really about me. It was about her own insecurity. It was about the fact that she felt like I'd stolen her life by being born to the same parents, by having access to the same opportunities, by existing in the same space as her. "I don't expect your forgiveness," Rebecca said to me. "I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, and I'm ashamed of what I did, and I understand if you never want to speak to me again." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and I saw myself. I saw a woman who had been hurt, a woman who had made terrible choices because of that hurt, a woman who had then experienced consequences and had to live with the weight of what she'd done. I didn't forgive her that day. Forgiveness isn't something that happens in a moment. It's a process. But I opened the door to the possibility of forgiveness. I told her that I was willing to try. Rebecca and I are sisters again. Not the same kind of sisters we were before. There's a scar now, and that scar will probably always be there. But we've rebuilt something. We've created a new relationship based on honesty and boundaries and a mutual understanding that we both have the capacity to hurt each other, but we're choosing not to. She's in a healthy relationship now with someone she met in a support group. He treats her with kindness and respect. He loves her for who she is, not for what she can give him or what he can prove by having her. I'm not dating anyone. I know that might seem like the conclusion to this story should be that I meet someone new and I'm happy. But the real conclusion is that I'm happy on my own. I'm in graduate school. I'm rebuilding my relationship with myself. I'm learning that I'm whole without a man in my life. I'm learning that my worth isn't determined by whether someone loves me romantically. As for James, he's moved away. Last I heard, he was engaged to another woman and living in a different state. I don't follow his life anymore. I don't need to. I don't need him to suffer for me to heal. I don't need revenge for my life to feel complete. What I learned from all of this is that the world is full of people who will hurt you. Some of them will be strangers. Some of them will be people you love. But you get to choose whether their actions define you. You get to choose whether you let their betrayal poison your ability to trust again. After everything happened, I spent a lot of time thinking about why Rebecca had felt so compelled to hurt me. I read books about sibling rivalry and family trauma and the human capacity for cruelty. And I came to realize something important. Rebecca's betrayal wasn't really about me. It was about her. It was about her own insecurities and her own wounds. It was about her feeling like she had never been good enough, and me being happy had triggered something in her, something ancient and painful. And while that doesn't excuse what she did, it helped me understand it. And understanding something is the first step to healing from it. The same was true for James. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He wasn't evil. He was a man who was confused about his own feelings, who was selfish, who didn't have the emotional maturity to handle his feelings for Rebecca in a healthy way. So he did what immature people do. He lied and cheated and hurt people. That doesn't make his actions okay, but it helps me understand that he wasn't specifically targeting me for destruction. I was just a casualty in his own emotional crisis. And while that doesn't excuse what she did, it helped me understand it. And understanding something is the first step to healing from it. The same was true for James. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He wasn't evil. He was a man who was confused about his own feelings, who was selfish, who didn't have the emotional maturity to handle his feelings for Rebecca in a healthy way. So he did what immature people do. He lied and cheated and hurt people. That doesn't make his actions okay. But it helps me understand that he wasn't specifically targeting me for destruction. I was just a casualty in his own emotional crisis. If I could go back to the beginning, to that day in the coffee shop when James spilled his cappuccino on me, I wouldn't do anything differently. Even knowing how it all would end, I would still let that moment happen. because that moment led to me learning crucial lessons about myself. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that I can survive betrayal and come out the other side. I learned that my worth is not determined by whether people love me or whether I'm hurt. But I wish I'd known to listen to my gut. I wish I'd trusted my instincts when I felt that something was wrong. I wish I'd talked to someone instead of ignoring the signs. I wish I'd known that it's okay to question people you love. It's not paranoid or crazy to ask direct questions when something feels off. It's actually the healthiest thing you can do. I wish I'd known that having boundaries with people is not the same as not loving them. Rebecca and I are still sisters, but we have clearer boundaries now. And that's not cold or rejecting. That's actually what love looks like when it's real. The thing I didn't expect to find in all of this was grace. I didn't expect to be able to forgive Rebecca. It's about how betrayal can either destroy you or build you, depending on how you choose to respond to it. If you're watching this and you've experienced betrayal, whether it's from a partner, a family member, a friend, I want you to know something. What they did is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of them. It's a reflection of their own pain and their own brokenness. And while that might not make the pain go away right now, I hope it helps you understand that you don't deserve what happened to you, and you're going to be okay. I know where you are. I know how dark it feels. I know how impossible recovery seems right now. But I promise you, it gets easier. Not because the pain goes away, but because you get stronger. You learn to carry it differently. You learn that you can survive this. Talk to someone. Get help. Don't do this alone. Don't be like me and spiral privately until you're climbing through your sister's bedroom window out of sheer desperation. Take care of your body. Eat, sleep, exercise, move. These things matter. They matter so much. And remember, the people who hurt you don't get to live in your head rent-free. Don't let them. You deserve better. You deserve peace. That's the end of my story. It's a story about betrayal, but it's also a story about resilience. Like this video, subscribe to Tin-Tea Tales for more emotional, real stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Comment your story. Tell me, would you have forgiven them? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. If you or someone you know has experienced betrayal, trauma, or relationship abuse, please reach out to a counselor or therapist. Your mental health matters. Thank you for being part of the Tin-Tea Tales community. Your support means everything.